Bonjour. Leroy Staples Fairbanks, District 3, representative for Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. Want to provide a little bit of an update here. It's June 20th, 2023. Been a while since I provided a video update, but good conversation at the council meeting today. Kind of encouraged me to do so. So, we had long agenda, and of course our agendas are our council meetings are streamed online, but not the executive session. So in the executive session, there was some discussion about secretarial transfers, among other things, but also wellness center funding that we got from the state of Minnesota. And so I want to give a little bit of a timeline on a discussion about the wellness center. I haven't talked about the wellness center really publicly too much in a few years. And it's been a lot of behind the scenes work that's been done on the wellness center, but we'll go all the way back to like 2013, 2014. The conversation and the concept was, it was at a discussion point. We met with the Cass Lake Bena School District about a parcel of property that they have here by our government center. And at that time, we were unable to acquire it. Fast forward a couple of years, maybe 2017, 2018-ish, we did meet with the school district, and it took a while, but eventually we did acquire that parcel of property from the school district, and the whole conversation was around what we wanted to put on that location, on that piece of property, when it was the wellness center. So that the whole conversation with the school district and kind of like a partnership conversation was about the wellness center. And so we do have that parcel of property. Work started to go forward. Plans were drawn up, and then the pandemic hit in 2020. Didn't really get a whole lot of community engagement stuff done. The whole funding package was not complete. And so it really kind of put things on pause for a couple of years. So 2022 legislative session with the state of Minnesota, there was a bill drafted to get state funding to try to fund this project. Eventually, it did not get passed last year, but the language of the bill was $25 million just for the Cass Lake site, and that's all this project ever has been a Cass Lake Wellness Center. And we're really talking about 10 years of work here. But 2023, now this year, the bill was reintroduced, $25 million for Cass Lake. In the meantime, there was an amendment that was added to the bill. I wasn't a part of any conversation that was authorizing this amendment to be added, but an amendment was added to include two other satellite sites, which was Kego Lake and Ball Club. And then the bill went from 25 million to 28 million, so 25 for Cass Lake and then 3 million for the other two sites. And that's kind of how things were. We were unsure if it was going to gain any traction or if it was going to go anywhere. At the end of the legislative session, we ended up getting funded for 24 million, which included all three of the sites in the language of the bill. And so pretty unprecedented time, right? The state of Minnesota is giving us 24 million to introduce an element of wellness in our communities. I think it's a pretty substantial win, huge miigwech to everybody who's been a part of that work in getting us to this point. Lots of work being done. So that's a little bit of a timeline with the wellness center. A part of our conversation at the council meeting in the executive session today about the wellness center was how that funding is going to get broken down. And so, I threw out a few options on what I thought, would be fair, or how we're going to go about moving forward and figuring this out. And conversation didn't go as smooth as hoped, but understandably, trying to figure out how this money's going to break down. It certainly wasn't a good conversation, or a smooth conversation, I'll say that. A councilperson told me that, why does everything got to be about Cass Lake? Everything is not about Cass Lake. Because something wants to be planned and constructed in Cass Lake doesn't mean that it doesn't benefit anybody outside of Cass Lake. Doesn't mean that it's not for anybody outside of Cass Lake. This is the intention of this was a project for Leech Lake, not just Cass Lake, not just the greater Cass Lake, but something that was for all Leech Lakers. Now, there was no opposition to any of the amendment to the bill, including other communities. That's just kind of how it went. And so if we got an additional $3 million, we can help out some infrastructure in a couple other communities. That's a big win for everybody. It's a big win for all 3 districts and going forward. But I think the part of the conversation that didn't go so well is just, I was asking for things to be realistic about who put the work together, who did all this preliminary work, who got site preparation, who got architectural drawings put together, who did a feasibility study. All this work was done with Cass Lake in mind, and trying to get us, to how we were going to fund it. Some discretionary dollars, bonding money, guaranteed loan programs, different things, tax credit funding. I mean, a lot of that stuff was discussed. And so all the preliminary work was being done to get to this point. And so that's why, I'm passionate about this project, and I'll touch on a little bit of that in the end of this video here. But previous to this wellness center conversation, we talked about secretarial transfers and the 12,000 acres that we got in a bill a few years ago that only specifically focused on these secretarial transfers in Cass County. And so the idea behind that was like taking it in 2 phases and trying to be able to get something across the finish line, and then creating kind of a roadmap and how we would get step 2, which would be Beltrami and Itasca parcels and across the finish line. But all the while, there's another discussion about these other identified acres that was included in Cass Lake. And so it's another 6,000 acres or 5,000 plus acres that are included in the Cass County area. And so we're talking about technical amendment, and there's a few different angles of the conversation about this, but nevertheless, I think that the existing 12,000, the identified additional 5,000, that would be Cass County, and then the other 2 counties, Itasca and Beltrami. And so those need to continue to be priorities, and simultaneously, and in the work being done to try to reacquire the other 11,000. So the technical amendment of 5,000, and then the other 2 counties is probably about 6,000. And don't hold me to that number, but nevertheless, I referenced the conversation in the executive session today about that, is that we had a conversation about the secretarial transfers at a public meeting, and there was a few community members from a particular community that was not in Cass County, and so they're like, well, why are we here if there's no secretarial transfers in our county? But it was kind of inclusive to include everybody in the whole reservation, because it's not just secretarial transfers per district or per county or whatever. This is all Leech Lake land. And so a win in Cass County is a win for everybody on Leech Lake. And so a win in Beltrami and Itasca would be for a win for everybody on Leech Lake. And we need to think about that, like in a unifying sense, that things that are coming back to Leech Lake are, resources, land, whatever it is, that's for everybody. That's all Leech Lakers. It's not just that specific community or that specific district. And so that's a divisive conversation that really needs to kind of slow down, because it continues to happen. And then people hear it, and then it kind of aggravates people and gets people in a particular mood. And so, we need to really think about that. That was a part of the conversation that I brought up about the wellness center, is that just because, I am a District 3 rep, Cass Lake is in my district. That's where I was, working on this project. Cass Lake hasn't necessarily had a big project in quite a long time, like a community project. There's infrastructure that goes up that's like programmatic, administrative type of infrastructure that goes up, but it's not necessarily like community-based type things. In my opinion, that this would be huge. It would be huge for the community of Cass Lake. And so there's, according to the budget ordinance, we have community meetings about the upcoming budget that's to be approved. And so the council approves that. It goes out to community meetings for feedback and whatnot, and then it comes back and then the council approves it. We've already had a few of them, but I've added the wellness center discussion, because it's a funding discussion for sure, to the District 3 meeting at Cedar Lakes tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. So hopefully you can be there. Hopefully come listen in, learn, have some good respectful discussion. Not all discussion is easy though, but we got to remain respectful, of course. And then I'll get into my final part of my video. So I was elected in office in 2012, re-elected in 16, re-elected in 20. It's 2023. The end of this term will be June 30th, 2024. I've decided I will not be running for office next year. So it's about a year out from the end of my term, and I thought it would give good time to try to allow some potential new candidates, people who might want to get involved, learn about issues, get engaged, give them time to develop and establish campaign strategies, getting up to date, caught up on issues, different things like that. And so that is it's an important part for me, that I didn't want to wait until signups in January to, I'm not running. I didn't want to prolong that in that way. And of course, people are asking, what are you running for? Are you running for chair? Are you running for District 3? And the answer is, I'm not running in 2024. I'm going to take a break. Nothing substantial, I guess, that is the reason of not running, just to take a break and give others a chance at leading. A big part of this decision to not run was a conversation that I had in deciding to rerun for this third term. There was 3 things that I wanted to get accomplished. I wanted to get the secretarial transfers approved, which it has, Leech Lake Land Restoration Act. The conversation about food security and sovereignty, and there was an initiative about getting into the food business, defining what our food systems look like. And so another priority was getting a grocery store, building a grocery store, or buying the existing grocery store in Cass Lake. That was accomplished. And then the final one, which is it's a really important one and near and dear to me, was the wellness center. And so with the passage of the funding from the state of Minnesota, Miigwech, Minnesota, for the wellness center for Leech Lake, or for the Cass Lake community, that would solidify my third thing that I wanted to get accomplished. And those are the 3 things the 3 main thing, outside of a lot of other priorities. Those are the 3 main things that I wanted to get across the finish line, and they all did. And so this is not goodbye forever. This is just me taking a break. I still have young kids. My youngest is 4. Maybe I give a few of them a chance to grow up, get out of the house, and start their own lives. It'll give me a little bit more time to re-energize and refocus and potentially run again. You never know. But nevertheless, I value the trust from all of Leech Lake that you guys have given me for 11 years now, but it'll be 12 years next year. I will probably make a different post, a little bit more of a technical post about my time in office, things that we got done, things that we didn't, maybe lessons learned, stuff like that. But I'm not leaving in a bad way. I'm leaving in a good way, or stepping aside. I'll say I'm not leaving, because I'm not leaving. I will continue to advocate for truth. I will continue to advocate for issues, and I will continue to advocate for families for Leech Lake. So whether I'm on council or whether I'm not, it's still a passion of mine. Of healing families is kind of like the foundation of that, because a healthy family creates a healthy community, and a healthy community creates a healthy nation. So I assume plenty of discussions will come of this in the next days, weeks, and months. But any potential candidates who want to run, I've had conversations with people about doing maybe not like a political 101 or like a campaign 101, but maybe kind of like an orientation to issues here at Leech Lake. help you kind of get caught up to speed on where things are, what's near and dear to you, and just help out in any way for potential candidates, for people who are energized and want to get engaged and want to bring some good energy to do some good for Leech Lake and create healthy communities. So with that, this is not it, but I would say miigwech, and I love everything about Leech Lake, the people, the land, the reservation, everything. So miigwech for allowing me the time to be here with y'all. Miigwech.